Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. This is the podcast where you may own that movie digitally on Blu-ray, on 4K, heck, maybe even on VHS, Laserdisc, or Beta. But when it comes on TV, you're stopping and you're watching that movie because it is a timeless classic to you. And we have a huge movie for Couch Potato Theater today. We are going to be talking Jurassic Park. It is the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park, which means I have to get a team of expert paleontologists in for this special edition of Couch Potato Theater. And I'm going to start with our very own version of Ian Malcom, the one, the only, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
What's up? Look, I got a special guest here, Ian Malcom on a dinosaur. Look at that. If you're on YouTube, you gotta check it out.
Yeah. Kevin, I just gotta tell you though, even in plastic, Ian Malcom is the best looking person on this show.
This is true. And I did switch out the one where he was shirtless, but I decided to give him a shirt in this one here. There he is right there. Check it out.
Yeah. So, but you know what? It takes more than just you and me. We need a queen of paleontology, a queen of movie foo, if you will. It is the one and only Pantosaurus, Lacee Adderhold.
Hello.
Lacee, are you ready to go dig up some bones?
I am indeed ready to dig up some bones.
Well, guys, of course, the movie we are talking about today is the classic, the original, 30 years old Jurassic Park. Now, guys, Jurassic Park, huge movie. But before we get started, I have an important question for you. We must know before we open the gates to the park, what is your favorite dinosaur so we can make sure we have it on the attraction? Ladies first, Lacee Adderhold, what is your favorite dinosaur?
I like the ichthyosaur. It's the aquatic. Basically, it translates to fish lizard, and it's just awesome.
Mr. Reitzel?
That was a boring answer, Lacee. Come on.
What?
Really? No one says that. Come on. No one knows what that is.
It's my favorite forever. It's basically like a giant underwater killing machine. It's fantastic.
Did we not see one of those in Jurassic World?
Wasn't that in Meg? Was that in Meg? I don't know.
Yeah, right. Meg. I did love the
Meg 2, maybe.
No, but they did a version of it in the first of the second trilogy.
Oh, is that the one that came jumping out of the water?
Yeah, but that wasn't an actual ichthyosaur. That was that was a genetic mutation of a lot of things that they did.
That wasn't one of the dinosaurs though that you first learn about as a kid. There was like 4 or 5 main dinosaurs that you learned about as a kid.
You underestimate my love of dinosaurs as a child. Just gonna throw that out there. Like, you fully underestimated my interest in. Like, I dug in my backyard with a toothbrush. Like, I was into this. So yes, okay, ichthyosaur is my favorite.
Okay, Mr. Reitzel.
Now, I don't know what it's called anymore because apparently either it's changed names or it has another name that I didn't learn about when I was a kid, or there was other versions of it. But I like the one that looks like a turtle. We knew it as Ankylosaurus with like the tail. He looked like a turtle, and this one makes a noise. Yeah. But isn't he cute? I always like this guy. He looks like he could...
him.
Yeah, I don't know his technical name. I just knew him as Ankylosaurus, and then I see pictures of it, and he has like a different name, so I'm confused. Is there different versions of this guy? I don't know.
They're different. They're different, like, subspecies of the main species.
He's so cute.
So, yeah, like technically, ichthyosaur was like originally they just called an ichthyosaur, and then they found different ones that were like similar. So now it's a category, and then there are more species underneath it.
Okay,
so technically,
cool.
it's yeah.
Kyle, what about you? What is your favorite dinosaur?
Well, now, technically, I prefer my dinosaurs to come in one of two ways. Either big, green, and irradiated, or mechanical and transformational, a.k.a. Grimlock. But truthfully, I am a fan of the T-Rex. I know it's been always my favorite since I'm a kid. Godzilla probably inspired a little bit of my T-Rex love there, too. Obviously, there's some great King Kong versus T-Rex stuff out there, but the T-Rex, I gotta say, I do have a soft spot for the Triceratops.
You like the little arms? Is that what you like?
I have a little arms and a big mouth.
Nice.
But guys, let's go ahead and let's open the gate because it's time to enter Jurassic Park. And with that, here's a brief summary of the 1993 film Jurassic Park. Huge advancements in scientific technology have enabled a mogul to create an island full of living dinosaurs. John Hammond has invited 4 individuals along with his 2 grandchildren to join him at Jurassic Park. But will everything go according to plan? A park employee attempts to steal dinosaur embryos, critical security systems are shut down, and now it becomes a race for survival with dinosaurs roaming freely all over the island.
So I have a question for you guys. They got really scientific about this, and they taught us watching the video as our stars are watching the video on how they were able to get this DNA through mosquitoes that were, frozen in amber, basically. So does that mean if we become extinct for whatever reason, beings from the future can come resurrect us and clone us into an all-female race with a bunch of embryos or whatever that they find in amber from some mosquitoes?
The difference would be that a mosquito now has its choice of hundreds of thousands of different species. The idea with the amber for Jurassic Park was that it was from a certain time period, so there were only like X number of species, so that would definitely be a dinosaur. Like at this point, if someone in the future wanted to clone one of us or create one of us, they'd have to go through and find a specific mosquito that hadn't had any wolf blood or dog or cat or giraffe or whatever, because I would imagine that if you tried to clone something that had eaten from many different animals, you'd end up with like a conglomeration of something.
I just assumed the human race would be repopulated with a bunch of those annoying people that always get bitten by mosquitoes all the time that you don't want to have cloned again.
People without enough vitamin B6 in their diet.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because if you take a vitamin B6 pill, you don't get bitten by mosquitoes.
Yes. So, guys, I am noticing a little action in my water here. So I think it's time to get on with the podcast here. So, guys, let's talk about Jurassic Park, and let's talk about the first time you saw Jurassic Park. It came out in 1993. This was a huge deal film for 1993. Kevin, I'm going to say this too, and we'll talk a little bit more about the marketing in a little bit, but this kind of had that Batman 89 big deal kind of film to it with the way Jurassic Park was marketed. Obviously, the phenomenal book by Michael Crichton. So I'm going to start with you, Kevin. When did you first see this movie, and what were your first impressions about the movie?
The build up to this movie was huge. Like you said, the Michael Crichton, the announcement obviously made the book sales just go out of the roof. And I remember getting the audio book version of this and listening to it. And to me, this was really the big introduction to Michael Crichton for me. I'd heard of this name. I know he'd done some earlier films and stuff was done on his films, and he had directed a couple of films. But this was the main movie / book that got me into it. And being a big dinosaur fan, as I was growing up as a kid, and then I kind of stopped because I found other, as I got older, I found other interests and stuff, but it kind of reignited that fun dinosaur love that I had as a kid. Because I remember we had this project in school where we had to make a dinosaur and make this little kind of diorama. Yes, a diorama. Thank you. Which was a very popular thing at the time in our ages. And I made the little turtle guy, the ankylosaurus one I referred to earlier. It was either that or stegosaurus, you know. And that was a lot of fun. And then this movie, the build up to it was so huge. I remember getting the audiobook on cassette, listening to it and enjoying it, and really excited that Steven Spielberg was going to be a part of this. And it was a midnight premiere for me at the Arlington Theater here in Santa Barbara. It was a big deal. That's when midnight premieres were becoming a thing. And yes, it had a huge build up to it. You remember you saw that poster like a year in advance, like back in '87 when the '89 Batman movie was coming out. All you saw was just the poster, you know, and there was no writing on it or anything like that. You just saw Jurassic Park. That was it, you know. And so I saw it on opening weekend, opening night, midnight, and it was a big deal. Sold out. It was great.
Lacee, what about you? When was the first time? What was your first experience with Jurassic Park? Did you read the book first, or was it go to the movie? And where did you see it?
No, you know what? I didn't read the books first. I remember seeing the ads for it and everything else, and of course you knew what was going to happen. You knew the general premise, but I was in no way prepared for because I don't watch trailers. I mean, I have a tendency not to. I'll find out something's coming out by looking at what the theater, what's going to be in the theaters. So seeing the poster, which was just, the black with the red and the yellow, and that's it. I had no visuals in mind when I went to go see it. So I was just like, the whole time. So I saw it. I think I want to say that's the first movie I saw 3 times opening weekend. And I think I went and saw it the night, the midnight show the night before, that kind of thing. I know that the first time I saw it, I was at Lenox Square Theaters, which is no longer a theater. Now it's an escalator. So it was really cool.
What's interesting for me is when Batman '89 came out, I was down here in Florida staying with family for the summer. So I experienced everything Batman '89 in Florida. Well, when Jurassic Park came out in 1993 as a graduation gift, my family got me a plane ticket to fly back down here to Florida for a couple of months, and I was staying with family for the Jurassic Park experience. So I saw both Batman '89 and Jurassic Park for the first time all down here in Florida at the Oakmont Theater, which was the theater here at the time. And I remember I went with my cousin and his wife, and they took me to see it. And I think me and him ended up going to see it like 2 more times over the next 5 days, and just being absolutely blown away by what you saw on screen. I did read the book on the airplane flying down here because you got a long flight. So it was interesting to see that. But this was just one of those movies you just walked out of it for the first time and realized everything changed. This is one of those movies. It was a timeless movie, but you just walked out of it going, movies are never going to be the same again. And that's what blew me away so much about this film. And I can say honestly, with coming out of it and just over time, that this is one of the greatest films I think of my lifetime. I'm curious for each of you too. What was your first impact on this film coming out of it? How did it impact you? Because this is kind of one of those films that impacted you when you saw it, Kevin.
Yeah, the big question was, how were the dinosaurs going to look? Because we knew Steven Spielberg was helming this thing. And, when you started to see like early little teasers and stuff, it was like, how real were they going to make these dinosaurs? CG was on the rise, but it wasn't good CG. We had Terminator 2 a year before. It was 92. And the moments of CG that had blew people away. But these were big moving creatures, so this was a big deal. And there was a little bit of practical effects in it too, which helped sell it, which was great. But that was the big buzz. That was the big feeling on how that was going to happen and how the CG was going to look. And you know, at the time, and some people will say now, it's still some of the best. And it kind of set a precedent. It also set a bad precedent where movies started using too much CG, you know. But that was the big hurdle that I remember, and the big deal that everyone was wondering, was like, how are these going to look? How are they going to look? You know.
Lacey, what about you? What was the impact of this film on you? You are a queen of movie reviews, so I know you think of the historical side of it.
The opening scene, where it's mostly dark and you just see the initial feeding of the velociraptors, and the guy being, you know, dragged in and, you know, going up and down and everything, and you're just sitting there. I mean, because Steven Spielberg has a good way of kind of, up until then, he always kind of, like, it was a slow ramp into the films, right? You had your little setup and whatever, but this was just like smacked you into it. And I loved it from the first second. And then, you know, as, you know, the characters were evolved and everything else, I think that at this point, the blockbuster had been cemented for several, you know, for a decade or more. But I think this one wasn't this his first one to hit $1 billion?
I believe so. I think it was
I don't know if it was Spielberg's first or if it was the first. I can't remember numbers wise. Kevin,
it hit box office records for sure, and held on to them for a while. Yeah.
And I remember there being the DTS. I remember the theaters. This was one of the first times they had the DTS sound where they would, you know, have all the specific, you know, speakers and everything, and you'd have to go to that one, you know, theater to go see with the amazing sound where it would just vibrate your chest. So yeah, and it was different than THX, because I feel like THX came later.
Yeah, THX was a little bit later.
Yeah. I looked it up, and this did break $1 billion, like $1.1 billion or whatever it was, and the sequel only got over 600 million worldwide.
Got it. Right, but I mean, I just remember, like, as far as, because I was in film school at the time, you know, so this kind of thing happening was just, I mean, everybody was talking about it all day, every day. So yeah, it was a phenomenon, to say the least.
Well, guys, let's talk a little bit about the marketing of this film, and let's start with the movie posters, because this was, they did take a cue from Batman '89. They put out this very generic, basic movie poster, and I always remember that there was another one before this that didn't say Jurassic Park on it and just had the dinosaur logo, and everybody was like,
that's the one that first came out with nothing else on it. Yeah.
And then eventually we got this one, which was just Jurassic Park. And then we've got the more full classic one with the tagline, "An adventure 65 million years in the making."
Question: was the book, the cover of the book, was it just an original, or did the poster have anything to do with the look of the book?
I think actually the poster pulled from the look of the book cover, if I'm not mistaken. So then we've had a couple different iterations of Jurassic Park movie posters with re-releases and international here. Of course, Kevin is holding up, for those of you watching on YouTube, the classic DVD, one of the classic DVD covers.
Show me closer. Show me closer. There you go, right there.
Yep. Is that the DTS?
Yeah, this is.
There you go, Kevin. Hold that up one more time.
The collector's edition, right there, DVD.
Yep.
Right there.
So, guys, first of all, what is your favorite poster of these? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I love the basic, simple one right here.
I'm with you there. The original teaser poster with like nothing on it was my favorite, which is very close to this one.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
But the marketing blitz on this movie, what was so fascinating about it was they kept a lot of it in mystery. We didn't see a dinosaur until the film came out. There was no dinosaurs in the trailer. They kept the dinosaurs to a complete mystery in this film, and I'll tell you what, guys, it's something I wish we would go back to in our trailers, because these were trailers done right.
Yeah, we were basically along for the ride with Sam Neill and Laura Dern's character and Jeff Goldblum when they see them for the first time while they're riding out on the Jeeps. Basically, the first time they see them is the first time we see them, pretty much, right?
Yeah, and that was some of the magic of this. But Kevin, we talked about it earlier. This movie was marketed very much like Batman '89, where we're just you had this slow build and the anticipation. You could just feel the anticipation of people. And I remember going opening night; they had the spotlights out and just the people lined up. And I think, except at the time, the theater I went to had 10 theaters in it, and I think 8 of them were Jurassic Park.
Yeah. They were. If you had a multiplex, most of the screens were Jurassic Park, and including the midnight premiere, it was a big deal. A lot of those midnight premieres were selling out. Did you guys do a midnight premiere at all?
Yeah, I did the midnight premiere, and that was back when they still had midnight and a 2 a.m. Or It was just past. It was just over 2.5 hours. It was 2 hours 26 or something like that, right? Yeah. So they had like a midnight, and then they had a 1 o'clock and a 2:45 or something like that. They were running them just back to back to back.
Now, this movie has a couple interesting taglines. Life finds a way, an adventure 65 million years in the making. The most phenomenal discovery of our time becomes the greatest adventure of all time. Any of those that stand out for you guys?
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
Yeah.
That rings through the whole series. Adventure 65 million years in the making is a good one too. So
I also thought that they could have done something more with spared no expense, because he says it like a dozen times in the film. Hammond, every time he's describing anything, he's like, oh, spared no expense, spared no expense. And it feels like that's something that Spielberg took to heart as well. He spared no expense making this film, with all the animatronics and everything else. It was, it was a big budget,
$73 million budget. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, I've pulled a few quotes here because this movie is one of the more quotable movies out there. I'm going to run down just a few. You tell me if there's any you think I've missed. But I love this one from John Hammond. All major theme parks have delays. When they opened Disneyland in 1956, nothing worked. Replied to by Dr. Ian Malcolm. Yeah, but John, if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists. One of my favorite simple lines in this film is Muldoon, clever girl. You also have Dr. Ian Malcolm, God creates dinosaurs, God destroys dinosaurs, God creates man, man destroys God, man creates dinosaurs, followed by Dr. Ellie Sattler, dinosaurs eat man, woman inherit the earth. At the end of the film, Dr. Alan Grant, Hammond, after careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. No, really? Dr. Ian Malcolm, seeing the dinosaurs for the first time, you did it. You crazy son of a bitch. You did it. As we said earlier, John Hammond, we spared no expense. Another John Hammond, Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park. And of course, Dr. Alan Grant in front of the T-Rex. Don't move. He can't see us if we don't move. Guys, any other quotes out there or any favorite scenes from this film? Lacey.
I gotta say that Ian Malcolm saying "must go faster" is one of the best deliveries in the film. Just must go faster, must go. That just the look on his face is priceless. Also, we can't forget the zoom in on the mirror that said "objects in mirror are closer than they appear," or "objects are closer than they appear," because it's so good. It's just such a perfect little just. Zip and you'll miss it, but yeah, that's awesome. Kevin?
The favorite quote for me is Malcolm had most of them, and you pretty much said them all, but the cold open quote was, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should. And that line just rings through the entire movie series because of what problem it created for Earth, basically. And I enjoy the first half of the movie more than the second half, to be perfectly honest with you. And being able to experience the sight of the dinosaurs for the first time grazing across, and moving in herds that is also mentioned as well, along with the cast and seeing them for the first time, because that's where you really get the cool John Williams music accompanying it. And I love when they first enter Isla Nubla by helicopter, and then they're like dropping down to the helicopter pad. Just a great shot there. I always thought that was really neat. Great shots of Hawaii there as well. But yeah, that whole opening shot of them discovering the dinosaurs first, and Hammond going, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." I always thought that was really cool. So,
Lacee.
And also the shot where Alan first sees the trike, and he lays on it, and he's just kind of like going up with his breathing. That was
the
awesome.
trike.
The trike, the Triceratops.
Just say Triceratops.
They call it trike in the movie. I'm just saying, I'm going with the.
When you say trike, I think of the 3-wheeled bike.
I mean, that's what they called it in the film. So also the scene where they're in the cars for the first time, and Malcom is describing chaos theory and doing all this, and he's like, that's what chaos is. For instance, you'd never just expect him to jump out of the car. Oh, or you didn't expect that, or I'm here talking to myself. Well,
that's a good scene. Yes,
just perfect. Yeah. You just kind of
course
going.
Yeah. Of course, I'm always looking for the future Mrs. Malcom.
Yes, nice.
Hey, Lacee, I wanted to ask you, since you're the queen of movie foo, rewatching this, how has the and this question goes to you too, Kyle, the effects, do they still hold up in your mind?
I watched it 2 hours and 4 minutes ago before we started. I finished it minutes before we started this podcast, and it really does hold up. There's a couple of shots where you can kind of tell it's CG in the background and stuff, but for the most part, he used, physical, chunks for like the interactions. I mean, aside from the T-Rex and that, but I think it was such a seamless blend because he did have, actual items there for the most part, and he had them all built out. It wasn't just, a tennis ball on a stick. So when they had some of the interactions with the T-Rex, they had a giant T-Rex head that they could
right,
seamlessly kind of blend in with the other effects. And I think it works. It still works really well. It still holds up really well. I mean, there's some technology that's not that hasn't kept up, but as far as like within the script, but as far as the film itself, like the special effects and whatnot, it holds up.
What
it's
about
kind of like hackers today, and they're talking about how like, oh, it's a 128-bit, and you're like, oh, that's in my fingernail now. Like I can put that in my tooth. So yeah,
I have some fun facts a little bit later in the show on some of the visual things, but in my opinion, for being 30 years old, there is no other film that the visual effects hold up as well as the original Jurassic Park. When you take in the aspect, of Lucas kind of doing what he's done with the Star Wars movies over the years, but just on this particular movie alone, the dinosaurs look phenomenal. Just everything he did. The visual effects in this film are still, in my opinion, easily top 3 of all-time visual effects of any film.
Yeah, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, Kyle, but you just said this is the 30th anniversary of this film, and it's aged quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very much so. But guys, I want to talk a little bit about the cast here, because this movie had an interesting cast, and this is one of those movies too that had a lot of what ifs in the casting. But we had Sam Neill as Grant, Laura Dern as Ellie, Jeff Goldblum, of course, as Ian Malcolm, the great Richard Attenborough as John Hammond, Bob Peck as Muldoon, B.D. Wong as Wu. We had Joseph Mazzello as Tim, who would later go on to be a member of Queen, at least in a movie. Ariana Richards played Lex. Samuel L. Jackson was Arnold. We had Wayne Knight before being Newman. So it had quite the cast in it. Just real quick, guys, give me some of your thoughts on the cast overall. Lacee?
Love the purse, love the shoes, love everything. But for my money, Wayne
Knight.
Sorry, what's his last
Wayne
name?
Knight.
Wayne Knight.
Yeah, he's such a if it had been done by anyone else, his actions would have seemed like over the top and dastardly, kind of cartoonish, but he's so good at just hitting that line.
Smarmy.
Yeah, like he hits that line and he rides it all the way. I mean, he's such a good, he's not even a villain, he's just a creepy, money grubbing, I don't know if we're cursing on this, so I won't, but he's just so, like he's just slimy. Like he's the impersonation of slime. It's just, yeah, he's so good. He's so good at it.
Kevin?
Yeah, Wayne Knight was good, but for me, after rewatching, this movie belongs to Jeff Goldblum, and I see why he's a fan favorite, why they keep bringing him back. He's kind of saying what we're saying or what we're thinking. Like, you did what, and you're going to do what? And so I love all of his lines. I love his delivery, and a man who's aged very, very well.
Oh, he really has. I met him. He's beautiful.
I mean, Jeff, I agree with you, Kevin. Jeff Goldblum steals this movie. I think Richard Attenborough as John Hammond was brilliant casting. How much you want to bet B.D. Wong didn't know how big of a role he was going to play in Jurassic Park when he first got cast as the scientist?
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah. But, guys, we have some very interesting casting what-ifs for this film. Because William Hurt was initially offered the role of Alan Grant but turned it down without even reading the script. Kurt Russell and Richard Dreyfuss were also considered for the Grant role, but they were deemed too expensive. Harrison Ford and Tim Robbins were also offered the role before Sam Neill was cast 3 or 4 weeks before filming began. Sam Neill said, "It all happened real quick. I hadn't read the book, knew nothing about it, hadn't heard anything about it, and in a matter of weeks, I'm working with Steven Spielberg."
This would have been a fantastic role for Harrison Ford.
Yes, I agree.
I love Sam Neill, but man, give me the alternate timeline where Harrison Ford is the Doctor. He would have been great.
But you know what, though? I think that would have set everything off kilter. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford has the adventure. Like, he plays the scoundrel and, the sexy bad guy / he plays the moral line kind of really well in most of his movies. And I think that just the fact that he has to do, Sam Neill's reaction to the kids and, being kind of put off by children and all, I don't think it would have been the same. I don't think it would have worked.
Different energy. Yeah,
I mean,
I think it would have worked in a different way.
He would have come off as mean as opposed to flustered. Because Alan Grant's interaction with the kids is always like, remind
me. Besides the Indiana Jones films, has he worked in another film, Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg?
That's what I'm calling off of my head.
Not as director, but in production, yeah probably. Just because he and Lucas and Dick Donner all kind of, worked together.
I just think that would have been a fun movie with Harrison Ford. That would have been cool.
Was it Hanover Street? Is that the other one that Spielberg had I'm
not sure. But guys, you want to talk about a casting that would have changed the movie completely? Janet Hershen, the film's casting director, felt Jeff Goldblum was right to play Ian Malcolm after reading the novel. However, Jim Carrey also auditioned for the role.
No.
How about a different energy?
No.
Laura Dern was Spielberg's first choice for the role of Ellie Sattler, but was not the only actress offered the part. Robin Wright and Juliette Binoche turned it down. Gwyneth Paltrow and Helen Hunt also auditioned for the role. This is for you, Lacey. Spielberg chose to cast Wayne Knight as Dennis Nedry after seeing his performance in Basic Instinct. I found this one funny. Ariana Richards, who plays Lex, said, "I was called into a casting office and they just wanted to hear me scream. I heard later on that Steven had watched a few girls on tape that day, and I was the only one who ended up waking his sleeping wife on the couch, and she came running through the hallway to see if the kids were all right. Apparently, Christina Ricci also auditioned for the role of Lex. Joseph Mazzello, who played Tim, screen tested for a role in Hook, but was deemed too young. Spielberg promised him they would work together on a future film. And finally, Sean Connery was considered for the role of John Hammond before Richard Attenborough was chosen. It was Attenborough's first screen appearance as an actor in 13 years.
That would have been interesting.
It would have also prevented, if you think about the alternate timeline, if you'd say Jim Carrey, Harrison Ford, Juliette Binoche, and
Sean
Connery, that would have basically prevented Indiana Jones 3.
Well, yeah. Indiana Jones 3 came out in '89.
I'm kidding. I'm just with the they couldn't have put the two of them together again that soon. I feel like that would have been.
So guys, I think we might know the answers pretty quick out of it. But who's your movie crush, Lacey?
In this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's Malcolm. Absolutely.
Kevin?
It's Malcolm.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter.
It's too easy to say anyone else, Laura Dern, because Jeff Goldblum looks so damn good in this movie. I'm not ashamed.
So the movie ran 2 hours and 7 minutes. Was released on June 11th, 1993. Had a $63 million budget. Its gross in the U.S. was $404 million. Its worldwide gross was $1.1 billion. I got some reviews and responses here. Rotten Tomatoes retrospectively reported an approval rating of 91% based off 136 reviews, with an average rating of 8.40 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads: Jurassic Park is a spectacle of special effects and lifelike animatronics, with some of Spielberg's best sequences of sustained awe and sheer terror since Jaws. Janet Maslin of the New York Times called it a true movie milestone, presenting awe and fear-inspiring sights never before seen on screen. On paper, the story is tailor-made for Mr. Spielberg's talents, but it becomes less crisp on screen than it was on the page, with much of the enjoyable jargon either mumbled confusingly or otherwise thrown away. Peter Travers, as from the Rolling Stone, called the film colossal entertainment, the eye-popping, mind-bending kick out of the jam thrill ride of the summer and probably the year. Compared with the dinos, the characters are dry bones indeed. Crichton and co-screenwriter David Cope have flattened themselves into non-entities on the trip from page to screen. And finally, our good friend Roger Ebert gave the film 3 stars out of 4. The movie delivers all too well on its promise to show us dinosaurs. We see them early and often, and they are indeed a triumph of special effects artistry. But the movie is lacking other qualities that it needs even more, such as a sense of awe and wonderment and strong human story values. Now, guys, after hearing this, one of the things that I did notice about the review trend when I was researching for this podcast was a lot of the same thing. It was all about the dinos. Dinos were mind-blowing, but the rest of it kind of fell flat. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think these reviews truly hold up as well now over all this time. Yes, the dinos were amazing, but I think obviously Jeff Goldblum's performances in this. Attenborough was very good in this. I think people were so caught up, the reviewers were so caught up in the dinosaurs, and I think this was a lot of people. They were so just caught up in that they didn't really pay attention to the rest of the movie going around them. That's just a personal opinion, but what do you think, Lacey?
No, well, maybe the first time I saw it. But like I said, I think I saw it 3 or 4 times opening weekend alone, and then it was in theaters for months, because everyone just loved it. So I think that but again, I have a film degree, so I'm not really the right person to ask, I don't think, because I watch a movie and I'll go back and just watch it for lighting, or
you're the perfect person to ask because of that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I will say this, within the first weekend, I think that one of the times I went, I literally went and just listened to the sound mix, because it was so groundbreaking, I guess, at the time. It was just amazing. So there's a lot of different things, but I don't think necessarily the general public was, I think everyone loves dinosaurs and that's great, but I mean, it's a solid storyline. It's a solid cast. I think it's a solid adventure film. I think it's great popcorn movie. And I think that I don't know anybody who doesn't like this movie. Like, I don't know any person that I've ever talked to about Jurassic Park that didn't just go, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like, I don't
Kevin,
know.
what about you? Do you think the reviewers were being too critical because they were so caught up in the dinosaur effects?
You know, is this time for a hot take time?
Yeah, if you've got a hot take, it's time to throw it out there.
Okay. So, no, because critics usually, whether you agree or disagree with them, should look at all aspects of the film. Yes, the first time we watched this film was all about the freaking dinosaurs. And that's okay. That's fine. And we went back and probably looked at them again. As I was rewatching this yesterday, though, I was wondering why I hadn't seen it in a while. I think the last time I saw it was with my daughter Camille years ago when the new Jurassic World movie was coming out, maybe, or something like that. And she wanted to kind of get caught up on the films and stuff because she had a little fascination with dinosaurs too, as most kids do. But as I was watching it this time, I was kind of like, I was trying to figure out like why I don't think it's as good as, or I don't think I liked it as much as I used to anymore. I don't want to go and rewatch this film. You know, it's for me, it's kind of run its course because there's things that is lacking. And I think what Roger Ebert said about it, now he says on his last thing of the review here says, but the movie's lacking of other qualities that needs even more, such as a sense of awe and wonderment. We really only get the first awe when they first see the dinosaurs. But strong human story values, you know, yeah, we see the doctor kind of grow on the kids a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. Kids were really annoying when I was watching this. I mean, especially the scene where the girl turns the light on, you know, I'm just like, oh, Jesus. But it seems like they were trying to put all of these actors in horrible situations where they have to run somewhere that's dark. They got to go somewhere and the raptors are loose and all this kind of stuff. And there was a sense of like anxiety as I was watching this that I never really had before because I wasn't really enjoying it as much as I used to. The moments that I enjoy in this are basically the dialogue between the humans, you know, either talking about what's going to happen or what's happening. All the scenes with Jeff Goldblum, obviously, that I like. But when I was doing rewatches, and you know, I was rewatching 2 and 3 as well. I don't find this movie as rewatchable like I used to. And you know what? I actually kind of enjoy 2 more than 1 now. I just gotta say, there's maybe because there's more Malcom in it. I don't know, but there's certain Vince Vaughn is in it, Julianne Moore is in it, and I love the fact at the end you get the dinosaur because at the end I got what I really wanted that I didn't see in the first film that I was begging for in the new films with Chris Pratt was I want to see dinosaurs wreaking havoc on the mainland. You know, and we got a tease to that at the end. But I don't know what it is about Jurassic Park anymore. It is just not rewatchable for me like it used to be. I feel like it's either overplayed, overdone, and I ended up fast forwarding through certain scenes again towards the end with the dinosaurs and the stupid kids. And the scenes with Wayne Knight, I rewatched that one scene when he's going up against that dinosaur that sprayed him and ended up eating him in the car. Cause that's a rewatchable scene because of Wayne Knight, not because of the dinosaur, you know? And just other little scenes. I don't know. It's 30 years ago. Fine. But I don't go back and rewatch this anymore. I don't enjoy this film as I used to.
Okay. So that merits a question that I think you can give me a view on, Kevin, because I know we talked about this on Culture Clash back when the Jurassic World movies were coming out.
Yeah.
Do you think the oversaturation of the Jurassic World films, and I know you weren't a huge fan of those, you didn't like the direction you take, has had any effect on your enjoyment of the original Jurassic Park film?
I guess because it should have, the dinosaurs getting to mainland is really what should have happened sooner than later, I think. And I also think, and here's a big deal, I also think the fact that because I've become more sensitive to animal cruelty is another thing that's bugged me about this. And the fact that I don't enjoy zoos as much as I used to anymore because of that reason, because they're held in captivity. And I think that has something to do with it as well. You know, like I have like the scene in Jurassic Park where they rescue one of the animals that got captured by the other crew with nefarious things in there, and it's a beautiful like animatronic dinosaur that Vince Vaughn is bringing into the truck in the second film. I think that's another reason too, is I'm having an issue with how some of them are actually treated, you know. And there's always the moment where, all right, let's bring on the T-Rex and have him kick some ass against the new version of the T-Rex. You know, that always seems to be something that comes in, and it's just like, how are you going to overdo yourself, and how are you going to reimagine this to make us more interesting about this? And I think they kind of forget in the new one about more of the human side of thing. It's about how let's see how we're going to mess this up. Let's see how we're going to test on animals again. So I think that's part of it too.
Interesting. Lacey.
Okay, I think that the main reason that they were able to kind of get away with this is the very first introduction where Hammond goes to the dig to meet up with Ellie and Alan to begin with. He says very specifically that he bought an island as a nature preserve. So nature preserve versus zoo is a totally different situation. Now, I understand that there's a, you know, kind of an adventure theme park kind of situation to it, but it's not like, as you saw in that first section, when they're driving around, if the dinosaurs aren't wanting to come out, they don't come out. You don't get to see them. So it's not like a zoo in that sense, because I've never enjoyed zoos. Even when I was a kid, I was like, ugh, this is boring. I can't touch them. I can't pet them. I can't ride them. I don't want to be here. Like, I was like, no. And then in the new series, I think that they kind of pulled all the humanity out of it because they were cloning humans. Like, they cloned a human. And so I think that was kind of like the balance between, you know, if we're going to do this, you know, they're going to do it secretively on dinosaurs. And then somebody took it the step further and really started breaking the rules and bending, you know, ethics and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a different outlook in the second series. And it was really kind of, the second trilogy was based on allegory for corporate greed and ethics and morals, the ethics versus morals and all that kind of stuff. So I think that they tried to make them smarter at the same time with more explosions and biting and blood and everything else. So I don't know that it really hit properly. But yeah, I don't think the zoo portion or the zoo of it all really bothered me. I think that as a nature preserve, I feel like that's probably one of the only things I would ever, as far as animal interactions, that's the only thing I'd ever go to these days.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
But moving on, accolades. This movie did bring in a few Academy Awards in 1994. It won Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. But here's the ironic thing. At the same ceremony, Spielberg, editor Michael Kahn, and composer John Williams won Academy Awards for Schindler's List. So I found that a little interesting. But I have some interesting trivia on this as well. The book and movie generated so much interest in dinosaurs that the study of paleontology has had a record increase in students. Universal Pictures paid Michael Crichton $2 million for the rights to his novel before it was even published. When Hurricane Nikki hit, which they were filming in Hawaii, all the cast and crew were all required to move into the ballroom of the hotel which they were staying in. However, Sir Richard Attenborough stayed in his hotel room and slept through the entire event. When asked how he could have possibly done this, Attenborough replied, "My dear boy, I survived the Blitz."
Nice.
In this movie, Steven Spielberg directs the man who beat him to the Best Director Oscar in 1983, Sir Richard Attenborough, whose movie Gandhi in 1982 also beat Spielberg's E.T.'s The Extraterrestrial as Best Picture. Also, finally, Steven Spielberg received $250 million from this movie's gross and profit participations. Nice little paycheck for this. Also, just real interestingly, Jeff Goldblum and Laura Dern, after meeting on this movie, had a 2-year romantic relationship and were actually engaged before breaking up. Goldblum is famous for striking up relations with his co-stars. Dr. Ian Malcolm, always looking for the future Mrs. Malcolm. Of course, the amazing musical score by John Williams, which he began scoring the film at the end of February and it was recorded a month later. Alexander Courage and John Neufeld provided the score's orchestrations. As with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another Spielberg film he scored, Williams felt he needed to write pieces that would convey a sense of awe and fascination, given that the film dealt with overwhelming happiness and excitement of seeing live dinosaurs. Guys, I want to ask you just real quick. This is one of John Williams' most famous scores. There's some people who have this as their number one favorite John Williams score. Where does this... I mean, the Jurassic Park theme that dun, 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 is so famous. Does it have a reason for some people to consider it Williams' best score?
Yeah, definitely. It's up there. And you're reminded of it during the Jurassic Park ride, and whenever you hear that, it just takes you straight back to this movie, and it's just so iconic. And that's what John Williams was fantastic about. He didn't plagiarize himself, Danny Elfman, and he was just so good at making these unique soundtracks that stood out for every single one of his films.
Lacey?
In defense of Danny Elfman, really quickly, he was mostly working for Tim Burton, and Tim Burton directed the same movie 47 times.
No excuse.
Anyway, no, don't get me wrong. I love Tim Burton. Whatever. Anyway, he has a note and he uses it well. But no, this is a fantastic score. It's not my number one, but I'd say it's top 5. And it's very recognizable. Like like 90% of the people that you play this for, they'd go, "Oh, Jurassic Park,"
Guys, we've hinted at it and we've talked about it some through this whole podcast, but I've got some interesting things here involving the visual effects and special effects, because this was such a groundbreaking changing of the guard for special effects. The job of animating the full dinosaurs was first given to Phil Tippett, who did several pre-visualizations with stop-motion animation. Motion blur would be digitally added to make the movement seem less jerky and more convincing. However, ILM visual effects artists Steve Spaz Williams and Mark Aze-Dipp suggested that most of the full-size dinosaurs could be fully animated on computer from head to toe, although their boss, Dennis Muren, told them that they could never do a better job than Tippett. They proceeded to create a test animation of a skeletal T-Rex anyway, which was shown to Kathleen Kennedy when she visited ILM. Kennedy informed Steven Spielberg, who was intrigued and ordered another test reel. He was blown away by the final result, where a fully fleshed T-Rex walks through a desert. He and Tippett looked at each other, and Tippett said, "I think we're extinct." Spielberg liked the line and gave it to Jeff Goldblum to say to Sir Sam Neill in the Visitor's Center. Tippett later stated that he was generally physically sick from feeling obsolete and left the set for 10 days, but he was later hired to help design the computer-generated dinosaur movements. Kevin.
What?
I thought you raised your... I thought I caught you raising your hand. No. Okay.
I'm listening to it. So.
Yeah. According to the behind-the-scenes book, The Making of Jurassic Park, an adventure 65 million years in the making, the infamous roar of the Tyrannosaurus was a composite mix of dog, penguin, tiger snarl, alligator's gurgle, and a baby elephant squeal.
I find that fascinating, real quick, Kyle, because I've heard of people doing it. And I'm like, where do they know when to stop to not like add something else to make it as scary? I think that's fascinating.
There you go. So the very deep alligator vocals acted as the low frequency element of the final roar. However, as Gary Ridgstrom stresses, the key part of the sound is the high frequency element, the baby elephant. The crew had to have safety meetings about the
I didn't catch your...
What? I'm sorry, Lacey?
Well, I was just going to... Kevin, can you repeat that question? You were asking about the Foley effects?
I was asking about, like, how did they know... Because there was so many different animal sounds that they used to come up with the roar. How did they know when to stop, and not grab, like, another animal and add it into it? That's what I would love to have seen, like, a behind the scenes of, like, let's add the penguin, let's add the dog, let's add the tiger, let's add the alligator, let's add the baby elephant seal. but let's maybe stop at this one, or let's add this one, you know.
They on the special edition DVD, the 25th anniversary, there is a behind the scenes featurette, 25 minutes on anatomy of a scene, where they do the T-Rex and the car spinning around with them underneath, and it goes through that piece by piece. If you want to watch it, it's amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's like 25-30 minutes. It's really cool. And they talk about, and they actually let you listen to it with the individual pieces, and then they go back and put them all together for you. Gotcha. It's a really interesting featurette.
The crew had to have safety meetings about the T-Rex. It weighed 12,000 pounds and was extremely powerful. They used flashing lights to announce when it was about to come on to alert the crew, because if you stood next to it and the head went by at speed, it felt like a bus going by.
Dang.
According to the special effects people, the most difficult effect to pull off was the vibrating rings of water. Steven Spielberg wanted the T-Rex to announce its presence somehow before the audience saw it, and got the idea from watching the mirror in his car vibrate from the bass effects while listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire. When Michael Lanterry tried to replicate that with the water, it was harder than any of the dinosaur effects. Nobody knew how to do it, but told Spielberg they could. The night before the shoot, Lanterry put a glass of water on a guitar, and when he plucked the strings, that did it. For the scene, they fed guitar strings under the dashboard to get the effect. A man on the floor plucked the strings to achieve the effect. The groundbreaking effects were the highest point of praise from critics. Stanley Kaufman wrote that it made King Kong look like something from a Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade. And finally, the Utah Raptor, which was discovered right before the movie's release, which had a similar height to the raptors depicted in this movie. Stan Winston joked, "We made it, they discovered it. And that still boggles my mind." Now, guys, we're at a movie about dinosaurs. We really haven't shown you some dinosaurs, but fear not, because I have dinosaurs. These are some of the dinosaurs that we saw in Jurassic Park. The Alamosaurus.
Oh, is that a tribute to Pee-wee?
Yes, there you go. We had the famous Brachiosaurus, which is one of the most famous scenes in the movie, as they are standing in awe of seeing this.
I got a question. Is this what we get Brontosaurus confused with? Because Brontosaurus was the one I remember that was like this the most.
Yeah. This is the one where they get the Brachiosaurus, and the Brontosaurus is very confused.
I think a Brontosaurus is a type of... Isn't it a type of Brachiosaurus?
Yeah, it's a different style head. The head
I don't know
is
why they
main.
didn't just use Brontosaurus, because that was the one that we all learned about as a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Danny and the dinosaur, baby.
Next up, we have Wayne Knight's favorite dinosaur, the Diplosaurus. In this film, they named the animatronic model Spitter. That was Stan Winston's team's name for it. It was animated by the puppeteers sitting on a trench in the set floor using a paintball mechanism to spit the mixture of methylcellulose and KY jelly that served as venom. Next up, we have the Gallimimus. And of course, Dr. Grant's favorite as a kid, the Triceratops. And one of those, like, had to have been just an amazing day on set to be able to be part of that shoot, being able to lay on that animatronic and really be tactile with it.
This was the funny meme that was going around with Steven Spielberg posing in front of it.
Yes.
People saying that he shot it and killed it on a wildlife thing, and people were like pretending to make him an enemy out of it. Like, you know, when you see guys, rich doctors going out and killing animals on safari, and they were kind of like trying to do that with this one. That was kind of funny.
Of course, too, when we're talking Jurassic Park, we have to talk about the dinosaur that represents Jurassic Park, and that is our good friend, the T-Rex. Now, Tyrannosaurus was acknowledged by Spielberg as the star of the movie, and he rewrote the ending to feature the T-Rex for fear of disappointing the audience. Winston's animatronic T-Rex stood 6.1 meters, 20 feet, weighed 17,500 pounds, and was 40 feet long. Jack Horner called it the closest I've ever been to a live dinosaur. While the consulting paleontologists did not agree on the dinosaur's movement, particularly its running capabilities, animator Steve Williams decided to throw physics out the window and create a T-Rex that moved at 60 miles per hour, even though its hollow bones would have busted if it ran that fast. The major reason was the T-Rex chasing a Jeep, a scene that took 2 months to finish. The dinosaur is depicted with a vision system based on movement, though later studies indicated the T-Rex had binocular vision comparable to a bird of prey. I'm sorry, but if I'm facing that down in the middle of the night, I'm just kissing it goodbye and saying my last prayers because, yeah, I'm Dino Chow, guys. But the T-Rex, to me, guys, is still one of the most amazing effects ever done. And I mean, because they mixed the practical with the digital on it, and it stands out to this day. I know that it, in some ways, the T-Rex itself has been kind of changed by Jurassic Park because it's been kind of like, oh, it's the dinosaur that's always there, and it kind of ended up becoming the bad guy, good guy, shades of gray dinosaur, Kevin.
Look, well, first of all, look at Sam Neill here. See, that should have been Harrison Ford. He's already wearing the hat, you know, and he's like ready to go.
Lacey, what about you? You have any thoughts on the T-Rex's place in Jurassic Park?
Iconic.
I mean, it really is the centerpiece, and it's hard to find. And I think Kevin, when you were talking at the very beginning about favorite dinosaurs, about how there was that top 5 that you learned as a kid, and the T-Rex is always going to be the first or second one you learn because it's the king of the dinosaurs, or the big scary beast, right? So I think it was appropriate that this was the main dinosaur used for the first film. And I think that it worked really well, and I don't think that it would have worked as well if they had chosen a different dinosaur.
I think there's one moment with the T-Rex, and it's in the 3rd Jurassic Park film, where they've run away from the new big super, the Spinosaurus, I think they called it, or whatever. And they're like, they've stopped, and the T-Rex pops up like he's the puppy dog you just called. And it was kind of on that moment I realized it's like the T-Rex has become the Rover of Jurassic Park. But I mean, you love it. You are happy to see the T-Rex on the screen whenever it pops up in Jurassic Park. It's the old Godzilla effect. Godzilla started off being this scary monster and then became this beloved thing over the years. And I think that's
what the Jurassic Park movies have become. Like, all right, when are we going to see the T-Rex? Just give us the T-Rex.
But the other thing I think about the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, whether it's the first one or going on through the series, is that the T-Rex is always motivated by one thing, and that is food. I mean, it goes after whatever's in front of him. So when at the very end of the movie, the velociraptors are coming out of the woodwork trying to kill everybody. All the other dinosaurs seem to be focused on killing the humans, but the T-Rex comes in and just takes anything out. It'll take out a human. It'll take out it'll kill the lawyer. It'll, get a velociraptor or whatever. So I think that it's more, it kind of becomes part of our side. It kills the bad guys, because that's what it always ends up doing. In the second and the third one, and in the first of the second series, T-Rex walks in and just annihilates the other dinosaur that was threatening the humans. So it kind of shows our team.
Well, it's funny you should mention the velociraptors, because, guys, no dinosaur got bigger pub and got put on the map like the velociraptor did, thanks to Jurassic Park. The velociraptor plays a major role in the film. The creature's depiction is ultimately not based on the actual dinosaur genus, which was also significantly smaller. Shortly before Jurassic Park's theatrical release, the similar for the attack on Muldoon and some parts of the kitchen scene, the raptors were played by men in suits. Dolphin screams, walruses bellowing, geese hissing, an African crane's mating call, tortoises mating, and human rasps were mixed to formulate the various raptor sounds. Again, Kevin, where I guess throw that one more thing in there.
These were the things that were the scariest part of this movie, because they were smaller, faster. They can get into places that the T-Rex couldn't, and they're just they're just vicious, and they work together. And I liked how they made a point to show you how they work together as a pack to kill their prey. You know, one zeroes in on you and the other one comes in at the side. Clever girl.
The other thing, though, is that I think that they had some of the best anticipation, because just in like even in the kitchen scene where the one comes in and starts like tapping his toe, like tapping his nail. Yeah. Just that.
And I think we got more practical effects with these two combined with the CG. And I found the effects revolving, whether they're practical or CG, with the Raptors actually more entertaining and cool than the T-Rex and the other ones, because these are the ones that were scaring you and they had to look real. And they did a great job with that.
Of course, you know, at least they can't open doors. Oh, wait.
What you get for using levers instead of knobs, man? Levers.
I have cats that would open the door if I had lever door handles. But interesting. There were some discoveries made after this film's release. Most paleontologists theorized that the dromaeosaurs, like the velociraptors and the dinochus, were discovered with feathers like modern birds. This feature is included in Jurassic Park 3 for the male raptors, which have a small row of small quills on their heads. So I did find it interesting that they did adapt the raptors and some of the other dinosaurs as more discoveries were made. And I think those discoveries were made because Jurassic Park fueled such interest and such money going back into paleontology. And I think that's one of those really cool things where a movie helps science. And I think that's fun.
I think that's a great point, Kyle, because one of the scenes that I really like in the beginning is when Sam Neill's character is the little snotty boy is like laughing like, "Oh, birds, they won't hurt you," blah blah blah, and then like he just zeroes in on that kid, starts talking about how the dinosaurs, the birds are born from the dinosaur, so to speak. And then he pulls out that talon and he shows like how it would cut you and gut you and your intestines would fall out. That was a great scene.
And he was so deliberate about it. It was
yeah.
Great. Okay, guys, we get ready to wrap up this edition of Couch Potato Theater. Kevin, you kind of gave us your critiques of the movie now and what you felt would have made it a better film. Do you have, with your hot take, do you have anything else that you want to add that you feel like would make that you want to add as far as your critiques about this film?
You know, I really found the kids annoying in this one, especially the girl. I don't know. I see why, because a lot of kids their age were seeing this movie for the first time and kind of reliving it, stuff like that. I don't know if you take kids to a park that isn't open yet and proven to be safe yet, you know, which is also my critique of the second film, is like, why are you taking the little kid after a horrible incident already happened? You know,
she's stuck on.
That's not his fault. Away.
I'm sorry. You both talked at the same time. I didn't hear what you said.
Sorry. Go ahead.
She stowed away. She was a stowaway on there because she wanted to be with her dad.
Yeah, I know. And they have to get that in there and stuff. But I would have, I don't know. I would have liked to have just seen, I guess, more smart choices on what was going to happen. I guess we didn't need to, you know, see Laura Dern running across open fields and into a dark area to try to turn something on or off. You know, I was just like, I got to fast forward through this, you know? And honestly, I would have liked to have seen, I know it would have cost more money, but I would have liked to have seen more dinosaurs, different varieties, you know? I thought that would have been really, really cool. And we didn't get any flying dinosaurs, did we?
Not until the third film.
Yeah. So that's the only thing I was thinking when I was watching it again. Going, I wish we could have seen more dinosaurs. We only saw like 4, 5, maybe. You know,
we saw the at the end of the second when you saw the cage, and at the last shot of the first film shows the pelicans flying, which is supposed to like intimate that like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. What about like, you know, Ankylosaurus, my favorite one, or some that aren't like terrifying.
So,
Yeah.
this brings up a good point as we get ready to close out too, because I want to talk. There's a lot of things that happened in the original book that did not happen in the film. There was the whole thing where there's many more raptors on the island than just the 4, and that's when Sam Neill discovers that the raptors are reproducing. There's this whole battle where he finds a nest down in a volcano. There's the whole Avery scene that happens in the original book, which was eventually used in Jurassic Park 3. And let's talk about the fact that John Hammond in the original book does not survive. He's killed by compies in the original book.
He's killed by what? Remind me,
compies. They called them compies. They were the small dinosaurs. If you remember in the second film, you had that big.
Are you talking about the swarming little dinosaurs?
Yeah, the guy. He was in the second film. The guy was zapping him.
Yes, yeah, the Peter Stormare character. Yes,
yeah, Peter Stormare, and he gets swarmed by them and eaten. That's actually what happens to John Hammond in the original book.
Right.
So there's some differences there, but I would have liked to have seen some of those scenes incorporated. I understand budgetary and time constraints and everything like that, but it's very interesting to me, the aspect of how many things from the original book were actually ended up not in the original film, but used in later films in Jurassic Park. Another thing too, the second book Michael Crichton wrote, The Lost World, there are dinosaurs who were basically chameleons. They could change, and they ended up using that in Jurassic World with that super dinosaur. But I just find that interesting. But what about you, Lacey? Are there any final critiques or things that you might have liked to have seen a little different with Jurassic Park?
Well, I mean, you always wanted, I know that I'm the girl or whatever, but you always wanted to see Ellie and Alan kind of end up together, because you could tell there was something.
Yeah.
Because Alan, when Malcolm inquired,
give us love. We want love.
Well, I mean, and I don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot going on. You've got dinosaurs and chasing and screaming and blood and whatever. But I don't know. I think that finally they got to it in like the 6th movie, the last of the second series. I think they finally admitted that, or included a little bit where they were like, oh yeah, they were a couple or whatever, which is kind of cool. But I just think that it had so much effect on pop culture at the time. I mean, look, it was recreated in, was it Toy Story 2 with the Barbie car? They had the T-Rex was running behind the Barbie car, and they did the little mirror thing, the mirror gag. And it also kind of pulled from pop culture as well. Wayne Knight's character was dressed like Mikey from the Goonies. Every one of his costumes was something that Mikey, like the whole thing about that little weird kind of thing. It took from Shakespeare. First thing we do, kill all the lawyers. First thing they did was kill the lawyer. So I think that it just sort of proves that Spielberg is right, and he's never going away.
There is that's for sure. But guys, final thoughts on this movie, and where does this film stand for you now? Kevin, I know you kind of talked a little bit about this, but what is it? What, wrapping it up, what you still feel Jurassic Park is an important film?
Oh yeah, definitely, and it has its special place in history because of that. The effects, it really, I mean, it kind of started with The Abyss, right, when it came to digital effects. Mm-hmm. And then James Cameron kept it going with Terminator 2. But we really got to see how well the production got with Jurassic Park. And if I remember correctly, this is where George Lucas was going, now I can start planning my sequel or my prequel trilogy, because the technology is finally getting to where I want to do this. And I think that this film is very important in film history for that reason. And it was able to tap into that childhood wonderment of what it was like so long ago with dinosaurs ruling the world, because all of us as kids, one way or another, loved dinosaurs, or at least were curious about them, or watched the ABC Dinosaurs TV series, which was funny. Not the daddy, not the mama, But yeah, and combined with an accomplished director, accomplished composer, it hit it out of the park. But for me personally, like I said, I'm not saying it's dated. It's just, I just don't find it, like I said, rewatchable as some other films anymore. It's just because I don't know if it's the following films that just kind of pulled in all the same tropes of the dinosaurs wreaking havoc, and it just I've lost the luster for it, so to speak, I guess. But I am proud of the fact of what its place in history that it has.
Lacey?
I also think that it has something to say about human error, because every single film that they've done is the dinosaurs go into the defense mode based on an error made by humans. Poor judgment, bad choices, just bad choices. Like they did this like the humans did this to themselves. The dinosaurs were just doing what they do. Kind of like Malcolm's speech to Congress at the end of the second
I believe it's at the end of Lost World.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think that the other thing is that there hasn't really been there's not been a dinosaur film in the past 30 years other than the Jurassic Park stuff. Really? I mean, not because I think that it's because if anybody comes up with a dinosaur movie, it's like, well, it's going to be too much like Jurassic Park. So they just waited 30 years and did 3 more Jurassic Parks.
You brought something up interesting. The movie 65, starring
Adam Driver.
Yeah, that takes you back in time.
Mm-hmm.
To the age of the dinosaurs. And although that movie wasn't a great movie, it kind of gives me I found it interesting because I would prefer, I like it when you go back in time and see how the dinosaurs were and not people trying to bring them back into current day. I would like to kind of see something like that done successfully. 65 was interesting, but it wasn't done successfully in my mind to where it really kind of gathered that. I think if they showcased more of the dinosaurs or teased more what was this about, except the other little twist with that film.
Yeah.
Because spoiler alert, it leads into the when the Earth gets pulverized by a meteor shower, and it shows you the beginning of the end for the dinosaurs. Where I think that would have been cool to like kind of get in the middle of the dinosaur Jurassic era would have been interesting. So.
And it's always either way, it's going to be a fish out of water story. It just depends on who's playing the fish.
Yes.
You know, like which side is the fish. So it's an interesting. But am I missing any dinosaur movies other than Jurassic Park in the last 30 years?
There's probably been a few B-type movie ones.
Yeah,
I will say this. There is a show on Apple TV Plus called Prehistoric Planet, which is strictly Earth in the prehistoric era. There's not humans in it or anything like that. It's all about the dinosaurs surviving in that.
Dinotopia.
Actually, yeah, there was Dinotopia, but that was actually based off of something as well. But I think you're right, Lacey. I think people got so I can't compete with Jurassic Park, so why am I even going to try?
Right. And so eventually somebody was like, well, listen, if we can't outdo Jurassic Park, let's just do some more Jurassic Park. You know, but I also love the fact that Chris Pratt like somehow like mystically made himself like go into the series, because in Parks and Recreation season 4 in the outtakes, he's sitting there at the desk and he's just doing his thing, whatever. And he picks up the phone. He's like, what? Spielberg? No, I don't have time for Jurassic Park 4. I'll talk to you later. And hangs up the phone or something like that. And then, 10 years later, he's in Jurassic Park 4.
That was funny. A little foreshadowing there.
Okay, Lacey, what about you? What are your final thoughts, and where does this film stand in your movie fandom now?
Always gonna watch it if it's on. It's one of those ones. It was one of my best friend's favorite films. We used to go down and do the ride every year. We used to go down to the theme parks and stuff and do the ride.
Jurassic Park ride is awesome.
It was really cool, right? And then we used to spout line to each other and everything. So it's one of my favorites. It's probably in my top 50. I don't know where in my top 50, but it's definitely one that I watch repetitively. If I'm just in the mood to have something on in the background that I don't have to watch and I still know what's going on, if I'm working or whatever, I'll put it on the background and then just pause to watch all my favorite scenes and then come back, mostly for the humorous parts of it. And then one thing I will say is I wish that Sam Neill's character had more comedy, because the only scene he got that was humorous was when he was doing and joking with the kids. And I think that it could have stood for a little more humor with them, just because, he was with the kids.
I think too, and I know you're not a huge horror fan like I am, Lacee. It's not my favorite genre, but there's some that I can dive into for particular reasons. But I feel like this movie and the Jurassic Park films in general kind of pull the strings on what horror films are basically something that kills humans and humans making stupid decisions.
Right. And that's the thing. For me, I can't watch a straight up horror movie. I have to be able to convince myself that it's a different genre. So if it's dinosaurs, it's a horror movie that just happens. It's a dinosaur movie that happens to have some scary stuff in it. I can watch, Brightburn. That's a superhero movie that's got some grumpy stuff in it, so I can make it, places an alien movie that has some jump scares. So that's how I gauge my horror movies. But I think you're absolutely right. The dinosaur aspect of it, when you're not talking about like cuddly dinosaurs like Barney, this was the first real, kind of screen dinosaur that we had ever gotten. And it just was terrifying. I mean, awesome, but terrifying.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I look at this film, I look at it through two perspectives. On a personal front, it's easily in my top 25 all-time films. This is incredibly rewatchable for me. It's one of those. You come across it on cable all the time, and you usually stop. And depending on where you're at, you watch it all the way through, or you watch till you have to go somewhere, something like that. It's the best of the six, and I mean, to me, it's not really that close. I mean, I know Kevin was talking about the aspects he loved of Lost World, and there's just things in Lost World for me that just really were. But when I look at this movie as its place in Hollywood history, I have no problem saying this is in the top 10 most influential movies of all time because of what it changed for special effects. And I think there was also a lesson that was lost with this film as we got into the digital age and everybody went more and more digital. And you brought up the fact about George Lucas saying, "Oh, I can do this now." And George went everything digital. And I think people lost the lesson in this film that this film succeeded and still holds up effects-wise for the most part to this day, because not only is it digital effects, it's still practical effects as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the lesson because everybody got just so caught up in digital. And now you look at certain things like what's happening with Mandalorian, what's happening with Andor and some of the other films. They're starting to go back to that mix of digital and practical. And I think we maybe have finally found the balance in special effects.
I remember when we were talking with our friend Jonathan Melville, who is from Scotland, and he wrote the Highlander book, A Kind of Magic, but he's also a big fan of Tremors, and he wrote the book about Tremors. And he interviewed the cast and all that kind of stuff. But I remember him saying, like, the new Tremor films, like what made the first Tremors film cool is because there was some great special effects, practical effects. But then, like, the 7th or 8th sequel, whatever it was, they all went to, like, cheesy digital effects on the creatures, and they weren't as effective.
Yeah. I think another thing is that television series like networks like Sci-Fi, they went full, like 100% digital on several shows.
Digital.
Like the show Sanctuary, like 80% of that show is a bunch of actors in a full green set, and they pull it off, and it's fun, and it's a great show, and I love that show. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying anything bad about that show, but I think that the quality of the quality versus cost of digital has kind of flipped at this point.
Yeah. But guys, with that, we're going to close out this episode of Couch Potato Theater. We're going to let you know where you can find Couch Potato Theater and all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network. Okay, guys, thank you for joining us for this edition of Couch Potatoes Theater. Of course, you can find all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network on our podcast master feed at fbnet.podbean.com. Of course, hopefully, too, you are watching this on our wonderful YouTube channel, Fandom Podcast Network. Please give us a like, subscribe, and a share. You can also visit our Facebook page for the Fandom Podcast Network, where we try to keep you updated on all the happenings in pop culture. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at the Fandom Podcast Network or on Twitter at FanPod Network. I've been your host for this episode of Couch Potato Theater. My name is Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW, on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter/X now, Instagram and Threads at Spartan_Phoenix.
And Lacey, I know you don't have the big social media presence out there, but you can find you hanging around sometimes on the Fandom Podcast Network page, making some comments. And I know you're on X or Twitter or whatever thing it's going to be called these days. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Twitter/X at Lacee Pants, and I'm on Instagram, the Lacee Pants, and in person I'll be at Dragon Con over Labor Day weekend running the charity auction. I'm working the charity auction, so come see me, say hello.
Again, thank you to this wonderful team of movie paleontologists. You guys, it's always about the bones. The bones tell the true story. Thank you so much to our listeners. We love you guys. And just remember, until next time, life finds a way. And for sure, next time, we will see you back on the couch.